Alright then, and welcome to How Did We Get So Big with your boy, Don Huddersfield. Today we're going to talk about a band that really shouldn't be this big 21 years in. A band that came out of the most overcrowded era ever in British guitar music. This was an era where every week the enemy were telling us a new big thing was going to change our lives. They normally had skinny jeans and they shouted nonsense over Strokes-inspired riffs. Think back to the mid-noughties. The UK charts are full of bands like the Kooks, Razorlights, the Zootons, the Pigeon Detectives, the Fratellis, the View, the Kaiser Chiefs. All of them are really big, and each one of them has at least one or two hits that people still remember now. Which one of those still gets on the Radio 1 A-list and still gets top 40 singles? There's only one. Okay, we have the Wombats too. We don't get the chart hits, but they still get on Radio 1. The Arctic Monkeys are possibly the only band from that scene you could say were still relevant now. We don't count Coldplay, probably too poppy. The bands from that era who are still together are playing nostalgia festivals and have become tribute acts to their younger selves, where hardly anyone wants to listen to the new material and they go to the toilet when that happens. This year, I'm talking 2026, Arctic Monkeys released a single that went straight onto the Radio 1 A-list and into the top 40. They headline stadiums, they headline Glastonbury, they sell out arenas worldwide whilst they're playing slow piano-led lounge music, which isn't exactly what they first became famous for. So the question is simple: how did Arctic Monkeys get so big? And have they stayed big for 20 years? It's a cliche to say if we blew up on MySpace, but that's only just the beginning. We want to talk about the blueprint of a band that made sure they never became a memory and made sure they're still really big now and are cross-generational. Cast your mind back to Sheffield in 2004. 4 teenagers playing pubs, handing out burned CDs after gigs. No big marketing plan or label strategy or industry hype. There's a myth that the Arctic Monkeys were internet geniuses who used MySpace to conquer the world, but the evidence suggests that they didn't even know what MySpace was then. It was all down to fans uploading the songs, ripping the CDs and sharing them on LimeWire, MSN Messenger. It was a grassroots digital wildfire. Long before any label executives walked into their dressing room, the band already had thousands of fans singing along to every word at the gigs to unreleased songs. They didn't need the industry to tell people they were good, the people told the industry. When their first album, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, dropped in 2006 off the back of 2 number-1 singles, I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor and When the Sun Goes Down, it became the fastest selling debut album in UK history. Why did it resonate with the record-buying public so much? Because Alex Turner wasn't writing about rock star cliches, he was mocking them instead. He was writing about the taxi queue, the bouncer, the scummy man, girls in nightclub bathrooms, and bands who would never do anything, practicing their lines in the toilets. It felt like a documentary of British nightlife. It was sharp, observational, and brutally honest. They held up a mirror to the lifestyles of so many people across the UK. Now fast forward to 2007, and a lot of bands would have just made a poor photocopy of their debut album. Labels love that and fans expect it. Instead, Arctic Monkeys released Favourite Worst Nightmare. It was faster, louder, more aggressive, but also more emotional and soulful than their debut. It proved that they weren't a flash in the pan, one era act, and that they had the ability to back up the hype. And weirdly, the biggest song on the album now, looking back, is 505, arguably, which wasn't a single at the time, but built up a big audience on social media years after. This was the first glimpse of the band's future. Everything was darker, slower but faster, and more cinematic. 505 proved something crucial about the Arctic Monkeys and showed that their music wasn't just going to be nostalgia for older fans. Over the years, they were going to win over fans that are either in nappies or not even born then. That's staying power. You can only be the lad from Sheffield for so long. If you try and stay that forever, it becomes parody. It's clear that the Arctic Monkeys quickly realised that they needed to evolve or die. In 2009, the Arctic Monkeys went to the desert to work with Queens of the Stone Age's Josh Homme. They came back with Humbug, a heavy, dense, psychedelic desert rock album that confused half the fan base. The sticky dance floor anthems were gone. In their place were sludge rock grooves, cryptic lyrics, and a darker, more mature sound. By moving away from the sound that made them famous, they did two things. They shook off the casual fans who just wanted to hear "I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor Forever" and gave themselves the license to be an artistic band rather than just a party band. I don't think if they hadn't made Humbug in 2009, they would still be relevant in 2026. In 2011, we got Suck It and See, which was a bit poppier and janglier, and probably not many Arctic Monkeys fans' favourites, but it does have its moments and a few great singles. But in 2013, it felt like they became bigger than ever. That's when they released AM. It blended the heavy desert rock of Humbug with 90s Dr. Dre style G-funk, R&B rhythms and hip-hop swagger. It was a musical and visual reinvention. Aesthetically, Alex Turner turned into a 50s greasy rock star with a big quiff rather than a scrappy Sheffield lad with Oasis hair. He started to wear leather jackets and had a stage presence which felt like a fusion of Elvis and Lou Reed. Then there was the vocal shift. Alex's voice has changed dramatically over the albums. In 2005 it was fast, breathless, and he was spitting bars over really fast post-punk. In 2013 it went a bit smoother and it turned to more of a croon, and since AM it's become a velvet-toned lounge singer basically. Another thing that kept them relevant is that they knew how to play the charts. Whether they were trying or not, the Arctic Monkeys were one of a few guitar bands that young streaming era people actually wanted to stream. That's why Do I Want to Know became a global anthem with millions upon millions of streams, and why AM turned them from a band that the UK loved into a global concern. Up until AM in 2013, the Arctic Monkeys had released albums every 2 years. 2005, 2007, 2009, 2011, 2013. But after AM, the cycle broke. They didn't release another album for 5 years. The silence created lots of mystique, anticipation and demand. By the time Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino dropped in 2018, or 2018, whichever you prefer, people were absolutely starving for new material. Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino was a sci-fi concept album recorded on 1970s pianos. It was slow, it was weird, it was divisive, it was dreamlike, and a lot of people say it was absolutely brilliant. This is when they fully turned into an art band from an indie band. Not everyone was convinced, but a lot of people grew into it. It took another 4 years for their 7th album to come out, that was The Car. Instead of going back to their indie punky roots, they doubled down on the lounge sound. There were sweeping strings, film score textures, slow burn melodies, and Turner was fully embracing the crooner persona. And then it went silent again. All we've heard from them since is the new track Opening Night, which was part of the latest War Child charity album, a one-off single. It hasn't come with the announcement of a new studio album or a tour. No real explanation apart from the band members saying they do really love it when they come back together again. There's rumours that that's their swan song and we'll never hear a note from them ever again. And lots of people are asking, have they quit quietly rather than going out with a bang? Nobody outside of the band down there in a circle knows. And that mystery is part of why they've stayed relevant for so long. So, how did the Arctic Monkeys get so big? Firstly, they embraced a sound that was very big at the time. Their lyrics really reflected the lives their fans were living, but also appealed to older people that were living that life 20 or 30 years before. And then they kept changing up their sound and left it longer and longer between albums to build up anticipation. And now we're thinking, is it really the end? Or just another bit of calm before their next reinvention? I've been Don Huddersfield. That was How Did Arctic Monkeys Get So Big? And I'll see you next time. Subscribe!